Good afternoon. In the last lecture, we look at what are lists and what are the features of a list. Today, we want to look at the important function of lists. So, without wasting time, let's go on to Jupyter Notebook and find out how can we manipulate lists and bring something else. Now, let's create first of all a folder where we can save our work. We created a folder and it's around here, untitled folder. Then we rename this folder. We can just say important list functions. First of all, so let's open our folder, then Python. Then we first of all look at important functions of list, like to get important information. So let's save our first list. Let's say my list. Let's say 4 2 7 6. Right, this is my list. Now we want to find out the length of this list. We have got a function which find the length, which is len. Let's try to use it. Len my list. Then for printing the length of the list, we use print now 5. The length of our list is 5. Now we can also find information about a list using the count method to count the occurrence of a certain element within our list. So to find the length of, to find the occurrence of a length, let's just find print the occurrence of the occurrence of 4 now find out how many times does the list occurs. So how do we do it? Is my list dot count. Here we use dot count, then remove this one. My list dot count, this one. Let's say we added 3, another, let's say 68 here, and we want to find out how many times did 68 occurs. So we run here, then it's the number is now 16. Then to find out the number of occurrence of 68, here we are supposed to have to find 2. That's the number of occurrence. Now we also have another function to find important information like index. Now we say print my list dot index of what? Index of 2. Then you find the index of 2 being 1. Now we can also find information about the presence of a certain element within our list, like for in asking a simple questions like is there 4 in my list? So we are expecting something like a true or a false. We can expect a true or a false. So now here let's check whether that one is there. Now it's true. 4 is in my list. These are important methods that we can use to find important information about a list. Let's go on and look at manipulation function. Thus, manipulation functions, something like insert, append, extend, reverse, remove. Now let's try to manipulate our list using a method insert. So we say my list dot insert we want to insert a certain value like 10, where on position 2 we want to insert 10. Now let's print my list and find what is going to happen. Now there's 10. Let's continue looking at another method, append my list dot append. Want to append with a certain number 12. Let's print our number, my list, and find out what is going to happen. Now there's 12, which is ended at the end of our list. Let's go and look at another manipulating extend. That is extend my list dot extend. Then you want to extend this list. Now let's extend using 44. Look, when we are extending, we need to add a certain list. 44, 75, 82. Let's run, but there's nothing that can be shown here. We need to print to show something else. Let's print my list. Now let's add. Now add it at the end of this one. We extend our list. Now let's continue looking at another function. We want to use remove my list dot remove what? Let's remove an element. Let's remove 68 there. Then if we remove, let's print and find out what is there. Let's remove Now is 68 out. Let's check. Now index first element is removed. First element which was at position 5 have been removed from the list. Now let's try to find out another method being copy. Let's try to use the copy method and try to explain how does the copy method work. New my list is equals to my list dot copy. Now let's find out what happened here. Copy method. Now I'm printing print new list, print, and find out whether the two are the same. Now the two are exactly the same, but here I need to give a small explanation on how these two are being created. Now what actually happens is when a copy is being made is different from assignment, where we create this one, we call this method, we call this one a shallow copy. Now what actually happens, let me try to bring the paint and try to illustrate what actually happens here. We have created two copies here. This one my list, this one new my list. Therefore we created two objects here. These are just a reference that are pointing to different objects. So any modification that can be done in one of the lists cannot affect the other. Meaning to say, if we have our list like this is our list. At first, this is what our list is like. Then let's say we had a modification. This is 12. This is 10. This is 14. 15. This is 14. Originally, this is what it is like. They're exactly the same. 14, though I am bringing in new element that is different from what is actually in our list, but the main concept is trying to illustrate what it is like. These are referencing, pointing to different objects, meaning to say if there is a change on this list, like we add a certain value to this list, 22, it does not affect new my list. So let's try to demonstrate it here and find out whether this one is true. Now let's say new my list dot append. I want to add another element in front, then let's say 33. Then let's print the values, print the value of new my list, then print the value of my list, then the two are different. Now look, now new my list have changed to 33, then my list remain the same. Now Let's continue. I'm just trying to demonstrate how copy actually differs from where we have two lists. Then if the two lists are pointing to the same object by changing their reference, by pointing to the same object. Like if we say we have got two lists, new, let's say list A is equals to A, comma B, comma C, then we say there is supposed to be assignment operator here. Now list B is equal to list A. Now what actually happens is if we try to print the true, print A, print list A, then try print list B. If we check the two are the same right now, what's wrong? They are saying A and B. Name A is not defined. Name A is not defined. Let's bring this one as a string. Let's actually bring the concept of being a string. That's fine. Let's just bring a concept of these are being strings. Right, these are just strings. Alright, let's try to run again and find out what is going to happen. The two are the same, but if we might make any changes that are any modification in any of the list, it's like we created two lists like this. One list pointed by the same by two reference. This is what it should be like. A, B, then C. Now list A list A is pointing to this object, then again let me take another arrow which points upwards like this. Now list B list A, list B is pointing to the same. So any changes that is taking place on this list, let's say we add an F, this F will reflect in both of the list. Now let's try to demonstrate and find out is it okay? Is that what we are saying? Let's say let's add, so list B dot append H, let's append in H like this. Then let's print list B, let's print and find out whether the two remain the same. Look, H appears on all because they are pointing at the same object. Now, before we continue, let's just try to look at what we have done. We looked at length, These are manipulation. This is to find information of a list. This is how do we find the length, then we print a list, then we count the occurrence of a certain value within a list, then we found out the index of a certain element within a list. We find that is it true that there is an element. It's checking if this element is not true, meaning to say it returns false. Let's add a certain element that is not there. Let's say 30 and find out whether this element will also return false. Now this is false. We are just only finding information about a list. Then we look at manipulating. This is to manipulate, to make some changes. We manage to use insert to add. We append. Now look here, we append. The difference between appending is whereby we add one element. Here we add a set, actually a list within curly bracket where we add more than one element. Then we manage to remove a certain element. Then we manage to copy, but this one is a shallow copy. Why? Because each and element point is referencing to different object on its different list. Then we append here where we manipulate it to check whether it is very true that any change that is being done to each element is not reflected to the other by using copy. Now we look at when we are using assignment operator is equal sign, then meaning to say the two is different. This one is referring to the same object, whereas copy is creating another copy of the object. Then we are checking here. For the meantime, guys, let's just meet for the next in the next lecture. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe.